second trophy was number 2 in sales volume, total sales volume. This, by the way, is also with men competing. Total sales volume, she was number 2 in the Portland area. She spent the last 2 weeks of December in Hawaii, the prize of her office, because she was top salesman in her office. What's her secret? Poor financial conditions? In other words, if I were a real estate salesman during that year, and if I believed that poor financial conditions existed, would I have an excuse? Then could I sell? If I believed I had no excuse except myself, would I be able to sell? Absolutely. It works every single time. All right, the next thing we want to do, we know now what our self-image is, we know how it was formed, and I want to show you how to change it. We wouldn't even be here tonight if we couldn't. In other words, if there was no chance to change our self-image, why would we even have a seminar? Success seminars are all over the East and West coasts today. It's something brand new. We didn't used to have success seminars. And the basic reason is we didn't have any material to teach. Today we have the material and we have the people who want to learn. I heard a saying, when the students are ready, the teacher will appear. This has been true all the way through the centuries. Today we have people who want to know. And once they find out the concept of cybernetics, they find out that they can change their self-image. Can you stop them? You know, I had a man in Eugene's seminar, 3 months of 66. He hadn't sold very much. In fact, he couldn't even afford to take the seminar on April the 6th, 1966. I told him he couldn't afford not to take it. So, a man enrolls without any money. Now, watch the dates. April the 6th, 66. 5.5 months later, September the 28th, 66, the man had sold $1 million worth of insurance. By the end of the year, he's numbered 12th in the United States. What happens when a man does this? Well, he realizes that I have a self-image, and is it correct? Of course not. And can I have anything I want? Yes. So he changes it. Now, the process of changing your self-image is very easy. I first realize that I have a self-image that is not correct. And this is true, every one of us tonight. My self-image right this moment is not accurate at all. It's 100% better than it was a week ago. And by the way, what it was a week ago is 100% better than it was a week before that. And I don't even want to know who I was a year ago. In other words, it's changing that rapidly. Why can't I change faster? I can't visualize any faster. In other words, the only thing right now that's limiting me is my power to visualize. Well, let's take a man who came to the seminar and we were down at the Hilton. He sat back there and he looked up at me just as sincere and he says, "Howard, are you telling me the truth?" I looked back and I said, "Dan, I sure am." Now, in childlike faith, he believes it. He's making $400 a month, and he said, "I am going to make $1,000 a month." 3 days later, he calls me up and he says, "I'm scared. That's a lot of money." He says, "I don't know whether I'm worth it or not." I said, "You visualize that you are a man who is worth $1,000 a month and don't do anything else. Hold that image tight." Now, the negative feedback began to come in, and he became very dissatisfied with his job. And the dissatisfaction was so high that he terminated. Scared his wife. He walked into another company and told them he was their new sales manager. He had never been a sales manager before, but he had visualized himself as one. When he walked out of there that day, the owner asked him this question: "When do I come to work tomorrow morning, boss?" Can you feel the confidence that's generating? By the way, he found out that there were all relatives there and there wasn't a chance for promotion. The negative feedback began to come in and he terminated. Then he decided he was going to go into insurance. Without any frustration, he spent 2 weeks studying the insurance laws to pass the exam. Any frustration? No, because he was going the right direction. His wife? Very frustrated. It took her almost a year before she really appreciated the seminar. Now, an interesting thing, after 2 weeks were up, he passed his exam. The first month in the business, he made $1,000. Now, after you make 1,000 for a while, is it hard to visualize 1,100? 6 months later, he was up to $2,000 a month. Now, could he have gone 2,000 immediately? He could have, if he could have visualized it, but could he visualize it? No, therefore, you can only have what? What you can visualize. If you can't visualize it tonight, can you have it? Even if your Creator wants to give it to you, can you have it? By the way, he does. Some people are a little mixed up about whether he wants to or not. I think if you have a little trouble with money being a sin, I know some of us come from some type of backgrounds where it's very evil. If you're in this situation, why don't you pick up Catherine Ponder's book called The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity. She'll show you very plainly that money's not the sin, poverty is. And she lists poverty along with sickness and all the rest of the sins. I think this will help you the freedom to realize there's nothing wrong with money. I know some people say, well, I'm going to be successful, but if I have to have money to do it, I don't want it. They say success is service. Watch real close. In our economy, can I give service without remuneration? Therefore, I can tell how much service you're giving by what? Your remuneration. Of course, if you're broke, you probably aren't giving anyone any service. Let's move on. After I have made up my mind and completely satisfied all the convictions within me that my self-image is not correct, and after I accept the law that I can change it to anything I want, the next step is to change it. Now, if you're going to change it, do you have to have something to change it into? Let me tonight describe a beautiful self-image for you. Now, what I'd like for you to do is to take the self-image I'm going to describe and hold it in your mind for 21 days. In other words, you will actually believe you are this kind of a person when? Now. Remember, cybernetics never works if I'm going to be. We've got too many people in our country that are going to be. They normally die going to be. In other words, the secret of cybernetics is I already am. All right, now hold this image in your mind. Now we're going to go through it slowly. First, we're going to lay a foundation. And we're going to call this less than material. You say, well, I thought it was awful to be materialistic. No, we've got 20% of our people below that level. In other words, if we could get them up to be materialistic, they'd be a lot better off. In other words, they believe that they are not worth as much as anything else is worth. And therefore, if they are of low value, then there's nothing to them. And normally they have beautiful words for this. Probably the most popular is humility. It means I'm in the dust. I'm crawling with the rest of the worms. I'm nobody. But I've got more pride than you'll ever find anywhere else on earth. I won't accept anything from anybody. Can you see this type of image? Decrepit, isn't it? Now, on top of this, the next level is going to be materialistic. Let's define materialism. Materialism is when I value myself in terms of material. For example, how much are you worth tonight? How many here are worth more than $250,000? One man was determined he wasn't, and we dissected him. We sold his eyes and his arms, and we had him clear up there about 3 or 4 million before he knew it. The average man makes over $250,000 just in normal income. So, don't worry about not being worth $250,000. That's the beginning. But let's not say what you think you're worth, but let's go by how you act. If I were to give you a dog tonight worth $1,000, do you think it would be a good idea to feed him vitamins? You would feed him vitamins. Would you feed him on time? Would you exercise him? What would happen if he got overweight? Well, you wouldn't allow that, would you? Would you keep him up all night, some wild parties, and make him neurotic? You let him sleep? Now, can I ask you a question? Would you have treated this dog in the past month better than you have treated yourself in the past month? Now, a lot of you are saying yes. You're telling me how much do you think you're worth? Less than a $1,000 dog. It's amazing to me that we do not know what we're worth. And I'll tell you why. We have valued everything in terms of dollars, haven't we? Have we had a price recently on humans? Do we have an auction block? Now, because we have no auction block, what has happened to our sense of value? It goes lower and lower and lower. A friend of mine was driving a car the other day. He wanted to drive, and I was taking a horse to have it bred. Well, this horse is worth $10,000. And its foal's worth, well, I turned down 4 already, 1,000. So I figure there's about a $15,000 load here. Now, can you watch him? He's driving. He's all tense. He's got both hands on that wheel, and I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I've never driven a car with this much value before in my life." I turned around and looked at him, and I said, "I would like for you to know that I'm in the car." What a lesson that man received. Am I worth more than those horses? I said, "You've never driven that way, that much caution, and you've driven many times when I've been in the car." I said, in fact, the other night I was in a hurry, and I was eating as he drove. And I once looked up, and I noticed that the wheel was in the gravel. He was looking over at the sunset. So in an attempt to reach over to grab the wheel, which I did, and pulled it back on the road, I lost all my food. Now, does this give you an idea of how he drives without the horses? In other words, do we value humanity? Let me tell you what you're worth tonight. If you do not place a value worth more than everything in the world combined, are you materialistic then? All right, what about the stars? Are you worth more than the stars? Some people don't really know, but the stars were really created for you. Some people think the stars are up there taking glory, looking at me. That's not the way it works. In fact, did you know that some of their glory that you're enjoying this very night left billions and billions of years ago? It's been traveling a long time, hasn't it? Just for you to enjoy. So we're saying then on the materialistic level, everything material combined is worth how much compared to you? Nothing. Now, in the United States economy, our society, are we above a materialistic level? Let's take Cuba. Is Castro where? Did he put a price tag on some people and sell them? Then he's materialistic. Now, it's interesting to know that we as Americans are materialistic, but as a whole, we are not. In other words, our society has values that are above materialism. Our people have values that are materialism. All right, let's go to the next level. It's animal. And all that means is that an object that can move is worth more than an inanimate object. Now, if a society reaches this level of animal, do we have things like the Humane Society? Now, I could ask a question tonight that would startle some of you. How many of you would be allowed to get away with treating an animal like you've treated yourself for the past month? I know this is too close to home for you to answer me. By the way, you have freedom to do it, of course. But if you treated an animal the way you treat yourself, they would report it. All right, let's go to the next level. All we're going to have on the next level is called a humanitarian. And all this means is I've separated one animal from all of the rest of the other animals. So we end up with a noble concept, isn't it? Now, I'd like for you to know that when I'm considering the first 3 levels, then is the humanitarian level very wonderful. And I will go along with it. In other words, it's better than anything I've talked about so far. But I have 2 more levels to put on the board. And in order for you to see the value of these 2 levels, I'm going to have to do what to this level? Show you its weakness, right? All right? In other words, don't infer that when I completely destroy the value of this, that I'm against it. I mean, I'm for it if you're down here. But if you're here, then move on. Now, to describe a humanitarian level, let's say things like feet of clay. Let's say things like, to forgive is divine. To err is human. Now, what have I got on the level number 4? I've got feet of clay, do I not? Do I have errors? Do I have mistakes? I also have moods. Moody behavior is a form of suicide. In other words, it means if I'm in a mood, it means that I have taken this much of my life. Life is time, and I've taken this much of my life and killed it. Now, would I have a low value on time if I would murder some of it? I know about moods means blue Monday morning. It's raining. And you wake up and you look out and you see the rain, you walk over and X the day off. Might as well go back to bed. In other words, you've killed this one. We have expressions, you get up on the wrong side of the bed. He should have stayed in bed. You're going to damage other people the rest of the day. He's human. You ever heard that? In other words, we make allowances for him. Now, our society falls on this level. We have things like Marshall Plan, Lend-Lease. These are all humanitarian concepts. Humanitarian means I'm big. I'm noble. Who are you? You're some poor person who needs help. Now, how do I give you your help? So you can't return it. In other words, if I help you and you don't have any way to pay me back, I've hurt you. Have I taken away from your individuality, the nobleness of your own character? In other words, I am destroying you. Now, there's only one thing you can do, is hate me. Do people on the continent of Europe think highly of us? I was walking in the streets of Paris, and I thought I was fairly disguised. I looked like I thought a continental. Well, someone walked up to me and says, "Why don't you go home where you belong?" I hadn't really done anything. Just the fact that they could see I was an American, and I had given Lend-Lease through my tax money, I suppose, and had destroyed their sense of well-being, and they didn't want me around anymore. The bum was on the street the other day, and he walked up to me and held his hand out for money. Now, I believe in the law of fair exchange. I'm not going to give him money and destroy him. I said, "Why don't you practice the law of fair exchange?" He said, "What's that?" I said, "Well, if you want money, why don't you earn it?" I said, "What do you want the money for?" He says, "I want to get something to eat." I said, "You see the Salvation Army over there? They'll feed you, but they believe in the law of fair exchange." He says, "Would you tell me what you're talking about when you say law of fair exchange?" Very simple. If you go over there and listen to them talk for an hour and a half, you've given your part of the deal. Then they'll give you bread and soup. He says, "I didn't want to eat anyway." So, all he wanted was some more wine. So he went on his way to get somebody else to look down on him. By the way, they give him money and do what? Push him further down. In other words, you give people a chance to pay back, and you give them a chance to become honorable. Now, the humanitarian does not do this. He gives with the idea of raising himself. I think I can demonstrate this for those of you who have seen the movie My Fair Lady. I believe Rex Harrison plays an image of something noble. In this one particular scene where his lover rejects him, and she runs over to his mother's. Now, this is 2 insults. First of all, she's through with him, and his mother is on her side, so can he go home? So he realizes that his own home is no place for him to be, so here he is walking away from that home dejected. Now, he's in the gutter, And can you visualize Rex Harrison with his shoulders stooped and sad? Now, is he in the mood? And according to humanitarian standards, is this the proper mood to be in when you've been rejected? Right now, as he's walking along, all at once he says, there's a spark of divinity in me. Now, with this recognition, he throws his shoulders back, throws a smile on his face. By the way, he's becoming crazy. He jumps up on the sidewalk and starts singing a happy song like you just gave him $1 million. Now we say that he has gone to what level? The divine level. The humanitarian always believes the divine level is crazy. They have to, because do you have a different value system? I mean, a man who rejoices because his lover has left him, according to humanitarian, is he really all there? No. But now, on the divine level, it means that each moment is worth how much? So very much could I waste it with a negative emotion. Not one single second. By the way, when I'm talking about my time, am I talking about my life? Therefore, on the divine level, what value does he have on his life? By the way, if you move up to the divine level, will you be moody again? Now, if you have enjoyed it, you know, this self-indulgence, this pity, you might have a hard time leaving this humanitarian level. Oh, the intermeeting level is what we call the divine baby. And this is what we call divine power. This is a rather intermediate step. I'll describe this in just a few minutes for you. I don't want to be too hard on humanitarian, but do you have the idea now that it's really not the best way to be? In other words, if I'm up in this level, I believe in so much dignity, not just in me, but in every human. Therefore, could I possibly give something to someone without giving them a chance to repay it and have their self-respect? Now you say, does this man appear hard? Oh, I suppose to humanitarian he appears worse than hard. This intermediate level, the best way I know to describe this, and by the way, we are always trying to identify with these levels. We are always trying to deify something and getting it up here and then identifying with it, and then we feel like we're there. One way we do it is with Westerns. Now, I know some of you don't really love them, but I know some of you are bound to think that this is a life. Because if he can draw those guns fast, and if nothing can harm him, and if he can never be killed, by the way, am I beginning to describe God? And if you can identify with him, how do you feel inside? You know, we're made to be victorious. Did you know that? That's the only way we're created. And we're going to have power to be victorious. So you want power. And if you don't have it in here, you're going to look somewhere else and pretend you're there. This is how we end up with hero worship. Let's take Bonanza. I'll show you tonight why Bonanza will be more successful than the Big Valley. Now, if I want a power structure, I want 3. And notice, all good Westerns have what kind of power structure? You go back in your mind and think of all the Westerns that you've seen, and those that really just shake the whole theater have a power structure. Right on Bonanza, do we have it? We have Lorne Greene and 2 sons. Now, it's always good to have our power structure related. Now, I'm going to show you tonight, and don't think I'm sacrilegious, but I'm comparing Lorne Greene to God the Father. You see what I mean? In other words, I'm saying, are they using a Trinity? Right now, will Lorne Greene give his life for those sons? Will he give his life more than one of the Bartlett brothers will? Yes, he will. Because he's a father, and the Bartletts are just brothers. Now, you see why do we have more power on Bonanza than we do on Big Valley? All right, now, we know that that father will do anything for the sons. Now, if you saw 3 gangsters going along together, would you have the power? No, you're trying to figure out which one's got the money and which one's going to shoot which one. Would you identify there? No, you're gambling because you might identify with the one that's going to get the next knife. And then would that ruin your evening? But now, on Bonanza, will Lauren Green be killed? Well, now notice the way you say that? Your security is there, isn't it? All right, now, is it safe then to identify? All right, so we identify completely, and now do we have a good self-image all the time it's on? Now, our self-image will be in a little jeopardy at certain times during the program, will it not? But isn't that exciting to have it in jeopardy when you know it can't really be hurt? Because then you're doing what? You're having the excitement of open combat, right? For exercising power to result in victory with a predetermined outcome. Now, what more would you want? By the way, could Lauren Green have a heart attack during the week? Then you're through. You're all washed up. Before we leave Westerns, let's use them to demonstrate the divine baby level. All it means is that I have to grow until I have power, because I'm not going to be happy until I have power. Now, the best illustration I know of the divine level in the baby style is if I were suddenly to turn my television on to watch Bonanza. And I'm down at Lake Tahoe at the famous valley that they ride across. And as I look, I see Lauren Green, sure enough, in the middle horse. See the white hair. And then I look and there's nobody on the horses on either side. And I think, oh no, my power is gone. And then on the bottom of the TV it says, do not turn the channel. Lauren Green has his sons. Keep looking. So I look a little closer, and sure enough, there's two pieces of wood hanging back on the both sides of both horses, and, you know, these sled-type things where the wood goes along on the ground. And then I look and I see there's two papooses tied there. And they got tags on them. Lauren Green's sons. He's still got his guns. Do I want to identify with him now? No, because I know when he's ambushed. Can you just see Lauren Green with the two babies under both arms running for the bush? Can he shoot? His arms are with the babies. He can't. In other words, he's going to get killed, isn't he? Now, does this show you what I mean by the baby approach? Now, by the way, they're divine, aren't they? They're sons. But can they do anything? In other words, it's not enough to move from the humanitarian level to the divine level unless you go to full maturity with power.